Oh, I guess, yeah. So Pascal, for the record, yeah, we'll record this meeting because, there is demand to, be able to review the content and slides, as well as questions, because there may be other people who benefit from it. So I guess I actually made a presentation, and the format will be that I hope to go through the presentation in like probably 20, 25 minutes and have most of the meetings be about question. So I guess because I think it's better to have it be a bit more interactive than just lecture style. And to situate the context, I guess, of that recording, this recording is happening in August 2020. This is in the context of a WL research internship where Pascal, Loic, and Brown are the first among the first cohort of interns that WL Research is hosting. And WL Research is a lab that I've started with some friends here with the hope of really working directly with engineering students across the African continent and strengthen the machine learning capacities by working on cutting edge project. There'll be another time where they probably share more about their project, but today came by request to discuss more specifically about the opportunities for data science. So interestingly enough, there's someone else called Steve77 that joined. I don't know who
Hi.
that person is, but I guess all good. So yeah, as I said, I'll prepare the presentation, so I'll go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll have it hopefully be an interactive format. So yeah, so I made a dated presentation. It's entitled Data Science Careers, an Overview as of August 2020. And the presentation goal is to highlight both the opportunities and the attitude to be successful in the data science space, while painting a realistic pictures adapted to the realities of the African continent. I think I would start a bit by myself. So I was born and raised in Cote d'Ivoire. I was very interested in math and physics in high school. And growing up, like there was always this like question of like, oh, why would math be helpful at? I think you may have also encountered these kind of jokes in high school where people are like, oh, we studied derivatives and all these things. When would I ever need that in my life? I don't go out shopping thinking about the derivative of XYZ. I don't think about linear algebra. I don't think about probability. Why would that ever be helpful in my life? So, I mean, often it was a source of like, of doubt, but I mean, I knew I enjoyed it. And I also had my parents that were that were in STEM. So my dad had a training in electrical engineering, and my mom had a training in pharmacy. And overall, I found that it was helpful for them in their career as they did many endeavors, both related to their technical training and not related to their technical and training. So I knew that from both what I enjoyed, slash was good at, and my parents that like I wanted to be in engineering, even I didn't know what it meant. I think one of the tipping points in my life was being able to move to the United States in like 12th grade, and so because I was kind of prepared for engineering school, even though I didn't know what it meant, like I was also fortunate to apply to multiple schools for college, and was able to be accepted at Stanford and MIT. I ended up picking MIT, where I studied computer science with a minor in math. And over there, I had the opportunity to have really amazing experience, both in terms of internship, research, and now I'm having a career in data science. And so W research started even with the motivation to translate some of this learning into like high quality opportunities for young people across the African continent to such that, because it's such an upcoming field that like if we can, get on that, we'll be able to really strongly contribute. And there's no doubt in my mind that, with the training that people have on the continent, it'll be possible to make a dent in the field. So the goal of the presentation, so data science, the origin story. So why did it happen? The term itself is created to our Bitcoin in 2008. So just 12 years ago, by DJ Patil and Jeff Hammerbacher, that were at the time both building the data teams at LinkedIn and Facebook. And they realized that the user generated data was so much more and could be used to actually refine the product and experience. So, with something like newsfeed, where you want to know, okay, what do I show people? What would they engage on? You need to, you cannot show the same thing to everybody. So you need to start understanding the behavior of people, what they like, and it creates this feedback loop in which the data about the activity of the product end up making a better product, in a sense that is a bit different from statistics, because in statistics you would just gather things about like survey and things like that, but here like it's the product itself that evolves to be tuned around the user. And then these learnings really took off in the last 10 years, with multiple companies also working in the space, and the movement spreading globally. And so like I think a conceptual picture of what people refer to as data science is that it's at the intersection of programming, math, statistics, and some business domain knowledge. So those three are like, especially this last quadrant is also why the field is so adaptable, because it changed based on the domain of interest. And I usually distinguish between like two types of data science, because it's a loosely used term. It's not well defined. And so I would say there is like one that's in a family of what people would call, business analytics and like statistics. So you have an existing process or product, you gather data about it, and you now try to make sense of it. So let's say an example would be that, you have a store or a pharmacy or whatever. You have sales that happen, and you want to know, okay, over the year, what kind of products are sold. Ideally, if you also can get the data about the people who are purchasing those products, you can start to understanding who buys what and when. And then of course, since your customer base is a reflection of the population, you may even want to start understanding, okay, for different stores, what product gets sold where, because based on the demographic of these areas, we can start learning more and more about who buys what in which neighborhood, such that whenever someone wants to create another store, we can know how to tailor that store to the desire of the neighborhood. And I mean, that mentality kind of assumes that, a lot of the data is gathered, across all these steps, right? So I think like it's one of those things where one could always start locally within an organization and start to gather a lot of these numbers and understand the trends. But the more you have underlying information and statistics or some idea, the better it is, right? So an extension with like, okay, who are your customers? What is their age? What do they want? So there's like one, like, in the extension of like business analytics, statistics, and I think like, the one of the main differences is that, I guess, in that case, the data is also digitally gathered. But then you have the second type as well, what I would call closer to like machine learning engineering, where you build product on top of machine learning models. So you don't like have an existing process on which you gather data and trying to make it better, but you have, for example, a product that will help you analyze text, time series, image, audio, or even scientific experiments. And for example, a good example of that, which is I think what Pascal is working on, you have legal contract or like user license agreement review. So you say, I have some contracts and I'm trying to, parse them for, XYZ, right? So in that case, it's not an existing process. Well, I mean, it's technically an existing process, but the product itself is not like, oh, I'm going to analyze, how long it takes for people to go back and forth for negotiating this contract and whatnot. It's like you directly engineering a product that, like, well, if you don't have a good model, like, it will not work. And that's one of my conceptual difference between the first one and two. The first one is that you have an already existing process that's running. You just now gather data and you try to make it better, right? So in that case, data science is like a really nice app to have. Sorry, it's a really nice thing to have. But in the ML engineering side, like, your product cannot work if your model doesn't work, right? So it's both like good in a sense that, well, if your ability is in building good models or like understanding how they work, that means that when you are in organization which are building these type of things, then your skill set is core. But if you are in this one, like, you'll be used as an asset, but like you may not have at least if you just come from a technical standpoint, you may not have the, how do you say, the central like spot, but your input will be key in improving the process across all of these places. So that's an important conceptual difference, because often people are like, oh, what is the difference between machine learning and data science? I mean, and for me, that's one of the biggest one. Is like when you or I guess to put in the limit of this, what does an ideal world for this one looks like? An ideal world for this one looks like data about every step of the process and every stakeholder in the process is gathered and has to be analyzed. So if I was saying in the example, of the case of the store, you have data about the population in the area, what they do, who comes, who buys, and all of that stuff, right? And then in here, the ideal world is just like initial models that work, and now that can power your experience. So very important conceptual difference there. Now I would say some of the attitudes to be successful. So the first one is, it comes from here, right? Is that you have to be both good in computer science and math. And one of the reasons is that those things are never really done in isolation. And that's like one of the first important part, is that the statistician, like a stereotype statistician, you would have the office of like national statistics, where they just work with, whatever data is gathered, and they do analysis on top of it. Whereas if you're interested in being in a business domain, you would need some kind of programming background, because you would tend to be, you would tend to be more integrated with the business. So you would need to be strong in like programming, algorithm, backend engineering, even if you want to deploy an interface on top of your model or things like that. And you also need, probability, linear algebra, multivariable calculus. And I would say the danger there, the caveat is just not to just box yourself, but be able to help across all of these dimensions, right? So basically, like if you come at it from like a business angle, like you don't want to just be the person analyzing the data too. You can like help with other things beyond analyzing the data, because I think that like the more you put yourself in a box, the more dangerous it is. So think of it more like as one of the hats that you can wear, or one of the role that you can play, but not the only role. But that said, if you're strong in math and science, like this is a great role to play because you can then still understand the, business aspect, but also dive deep into these more statistical aspect. The second attitude I would say is like learning. I think that like the field itself, for a field that's created in 2008, there's going to be a lot of new advance continually, right? So I think the attitude of so it's a good news and a bad news, right? So I think the good news is that if you always love learning and don't want school to end, well, I have good news for you. With such a dynamic and up and coming field, you will find yourself frequently, looking at new papers, which I think you already are doing. You will find yourself looking at new papers, hopefully contributing new ideas to the field, reading blogs, writing blogs, giving talks, attending talks. And because the field itself is moving so fast that that's going to be like an important part. So if you love learning, this is very good news. If you don't like learning, like it can be quickly overwhelming, and because the field itself is still expanding, and so yeah, if you don't like learning and you want to kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again, that field is moving super fast, and it's fit for people who like to keep learning for life. I think the third one is also to think globally, but also act locally. It's very cliche, but I think what I meant specifically here is to not like necessarily be limited, but what say your university offers. And I think one of the common traits among all of the interns at WL is that they took online course beyond what the university offered. And this is so important because it used to really pain me when like I would see so many brilliant people walking across our universities, even in the case of my country, and then they will be affected by strikes, right, which have nothing to do with like them, but they'll be affected by strikes. If teachers aren't paid, it will affect them. If teachers are not motivated, it will affect them. But I think that thankfully we're moving in a world where there are many options to take online course. I think like the thought leadership there is that not many employers recognize that. I hope that it changes, but at least we at WL recognize that, right? That a online course or an online certificate is as good or even better than like an in-person, which is why like we like yes, like we want to see the course that have been taken in the local university because we do agree that like those have good background. But more importantly, I think it's very important to go beyond what university offers. And now I do understand that in many cases, the course offered by the universities can already be overwhelming. So so it's kind of like, wait, you tell me, so now I have to take classes at my local universities. And then on top of that, I have to take online course. So it's kind of like yes and no. I think the yes and no part is because when you actually think about where the future is headed, and there'll be time for question. Like when you actually think about where the future is headed, I think it's important to like say, okay, like like even in my case, actually, like not to even exaggerate, even in my case, there was some course I was like, okay, this stuff I can see that it's not gonna be helpful if I want to be in the space. So like I'm gonna like do a like minimal effort in that class, and then now focus on the course that I actually think will be helpful, right? So like he actually explicitly made that choice in many cases because there were courses where I was like, okay, like it's clearly not gonna be as helpful, so I'm gonna like listen, attend, but I'm gonna have to be thinking critically about what I want and then focus my energy on that, right? Because there can be a lot of like busy work that's like done, but I think it's very important to say, okay, this stuff is like, and again, I have to be frank. This stuff is gonna be a waste of time. I will, do minimal effort in that class. But for that, online course that like, I'm really interested in, and I think it really ties to what I want to do, I'm going to focus a lot of my energy there. I'm going to focus a lot of my energy on this project that I'm working on with some friends, because that's what I see as like really helping me, right? So don't necessarily like be affected by the like quote unquote the system, but really think for yourself, right? So be able to take initiative, take online course, work on your self development. Yes, it's difficult, not ideal, but that's like that's the advice I would have. And then there are also like the global part too comes from thinking at the very least at the Pan African level, and then like some starting point is that, for example, in addition to this internship, like you have Zindi Africa, which I think some of you are already on, offers competition which are often paid at a Pan-African level. So it means that you can already go on this platform, enter like competitions, and start doing well, and like in some case the competitions are paid, and I think that the Zindi ecosystem will keep growing and work with more and more organizations which will outsource their problem to like a wider data science community, and more at the local level too. You can consult with different organizations, try to tap into your network and understand which organizations are interested in internally developing capacity in the space, and try to work with them. So that those will be like kind of the like kind of concrete like starting point. I would say that again, one of the reasons is that because the field itself is so new, like there can be challenge in the local job market. So you kind of have to also be aware of the realities of the job market locally, but at the same time, because remote work is becoming increasingly common and more opportunities are spread online, like you're also not exactly limited by the local opportunities, and you can start spending time as well looking at online challenge, other opportunities, create opportunities for yourself. But I think it's one of the downside of being like close to where the future is headed, is that the future is there, but it's not exactly the present. So there has to be that not already always smooth transition between where the world is headed and where it currently is. But I think two of the strongest force which are at play includes the fact that even at the Pan-African and global level, there are already communities that you can be part of, which offer opportunities. I mean, I will also mention Black in AI, which I think you are also part of, Deep Learning in Daba. So all of these organizations are really helping to create communities at the Pan-African level. And then, Zindi Africa here is helping with like some of these competition to give you projects so that you don't have to go through the pain of like working with an external organization, try to get the data, trying to understand the problem. However, if there is room to also source project based on local needs that you observe, that's also where you'll be able to like develop your skill for the local environment. So I would say like overall, like the next step is to, I mean, you are in the right direction. So it's important to like kind of stay curious, right? I think many of you had this hunch that like there was more stuff out there, and you started finding, online stuff yourself, taking those initiatives, sharing it. Stay a critical thinker, because I mean, you yourself are a better place to know your local realities, your strengths. And so, even what I say, right, has to be taken with caution, because I'm from Cote d'Ivoire, I'm not from Cameroon. So you yourself know better the opportunities there. And you have to always be critical thinking. And at the same time, also take initiative. So don't just be limited by how things are already are done right now, but also think about, okay, like what are some steps that I can take to also change the environment and make, you know, the ecosystem better at that. So that's kind of like those are kind of like, you know, my concluding thoughts there. And like, you can have 10 minutes to, you know, go over like your questions and feedback on that presentation.
For me, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
As an aspirant to be machine learning engineer in a big tech like Facebook, Google, what could be a strong point of our resume?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so good question. So uh, like the good news there as well is that like many companies are increasingly paying attention to the development of the continent. So I would say some of the things you can start looking at. If I'm correct, Google has a residency program that they will also open to students from the African continent. There is also the African Masters in Machine Intelligence in Rwanda. So that could be, you know, one of the next steps. Or if you end up, you know, like I think like the goal there is, you know, you have to also be more flexible as far as timeline, right? It could be like a kind of like moonshot goals that you have, right? And then think about what could be stepping stones for me to get there, but also because it's not always in your control, like do your best, right? It's like, you know, create opportunities for yourself, do project, build project, you know, be part of communities, apply, and then like, you know, hopefully like they will also, you know, keep expanding you know, their footprint on the continent. But what I even want to challenge you is that not to necessarily wait for them to pay attention before you can start trusting yourself and doing projects. That said, I do know that Microsoft is also, I think they established a research lab in Kenya. IBM has also established a research lab in South Africa. Google has a lab in Ghana now, so like you can book those, so you can like kind of like start looking into, you know, what are the companies with like an office on the continent, and you know, also like apply there, but also kind of like build your portfolio of projects. So you know, which even this internship would already help you out with. If you say, okay, this is what I worked on, this is the code, you know, this is a video presentation, you know, and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what is the difference between the PhD in research domain and PhD in enterprising? Is there
Yeah. Good.
what is the tricky? If we decide to do PhD
Mm-hmm.
in,
Yeah.
is it
So
good to do PhD in research domain or in enterprising?
good question. So I think like the advantage of doing a PhD is that it will like make you a better thinker at the method and like advancing the state of the art itself. So this means that you'll be getting very good experience with like improving some of the core methodology. Whereas in general, in the business context, you will be more familiar with like, okay, what applications are people, you know, willing to have. And so what I would recommend is to find a balance between research and business domain, because like I think the research part will make you a better you know, make you better at understanding the machine learning methods, but having the like, and you know, and like if you also want to become academic, that's absolutely fine. You know, you can kind of keep increasing the state of the art, and that's already, you know, given the change that it's having on the world, you know, it's like quite amazing. um and however, if you want to understand the business domain and the business problems and the local opportunities, like it helped to say work and consult with organizations while the technical background is strengthened. Yeah, so that's like my take there.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know, like, if somebody is doing a PhD, what's the best period to do the PhD? Like, is it like directly after the degree, master degree, or like you can work like 1 year, 2 years to go to the PhD? Or yes, what's the best period to do a PhD?
So that's I think like the that's what I said, the critical thinking part is like important. I would say one trend that I do see where I'm often concerned with is that I think on the continent there tends to be even like globally, like there tends to be like a mindset of like a lot of degree immediately. But I think it's important to take time to know what the problems are in the real world, such that you can map what you're learning to, what people care about, or even the interpersonal skills that you can learn while working in industry can also help you become a better thinker or researcher, right? So I think it's overall like a journey. But what I would say is, don't necessarily hesitate to take a year or two to get experience. But that said, I think the advice there is that if you start working too much and making money, people say that it's going to be tricky to go back and resume studies, which is an absolutely fair concern. But I also think that taking time to really understand the like problems that people face, because like otherwise you may be the risk there is becoming a bit out of touch with like what the realities are in the business and other wider context. And again, this come from my own bias, where I've immersed myself in the startup world with a strong research experience. So it's like I see blind spot that people have, but I guess it's like I'll just say stay self-aware, but it doesn't hurt to gain some practical experience before after school before resuming. So that's what I would say. But I would say I know that it comes from my personal bias. So stay critical there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, go ahead, Pascal.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Pascal, since I haven't heard from you.
Okay. I didn't bother to look online, so I will ask my question here. Is it possible for us to get into school like MIT after our engineering degree? If so, how can we prepare now?
Was asking me, what would be a way for to secure pathways for say graduate school in the top global universities. So one thing I would say, I think it's I would answer and then I would also give a counter answer. So I think the first answer in the how to achieve this goal itself is thankfully there are now pathways and programs like the African Master in Machine Intelligence that give opportunities for people to have also to work with the top labs in the world. And from those programs, it's possible to work with the top labs and then get good letter of recommendations. And then from those good letter of recommendation, make strong, applications to the best global universities for graduate school. And the other part is also through the fact that there are now like labs from such as like Microsoft, IBM, who have a presence on the continent. It's possible to start working for them and then get letter of recommendation to get there. So that's to answer that question. Then the second thing is, remember, one part in the presentation that I stressed is to be as much in control of the opportunities around you as possible. And like that self-reliance mindset is a spirit that like I really want to stress, because that will eventually be the best way to answer to opportunities that are also beyond your control, right? Because you know, if you think at like at a wider scale, like acquiring those skills and making a contribution to the field, you know, can be done in settings where, you know, I would say that as maximally self-reliant as possible, which is basically online course, work with friends on project, you know, aim at the top venues in artificial intelligence research and try to get published there, right? All of those steps are actually in your control. Well, minus access to compute. The other steps like will increase your odds, but don't think that the other steps will accelerate, will actually give you the permission to do this, right? So do the thing that you want to do if you were to attend those schools. And then if you attend those schools, it's like, oh, well, now you have more mentorship, more compute. But what I would say is not to think that the institutions are the one giving you power. Like they accelerate you, but they don't actually, I mean, that's more of a philosophical point, but they don't actually give you power. Like power comes from like internal drive and motivation, and you creating out opportunities for yourself, which is very important mindset for you know, for overall for the continent to have. But like the other things become great enablers. But so that's my kind of like, you know, nuanced answer to the first question there, to really in many cases be as much in control as possible, and then seize the opportunities you know, available to you, and increase, you know, the opportunities available to you. But don't wait for an opportunity that may be in or out of your control to dictate what you can or cannot do, or what you should and shouldn't do. So that's my that's kind of like my take there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
What are the leverage of applying for doctoral in the cash income? So is it possible to be in PhD or doctoral and earn cash income?
So I think like France has that, like France, like I think they have this program called the SIFRE, SIFRE, where you do doctoral studies in like a company. I think France is like the one that has the like this program the most well established. In other places, like graduate students are paid, but in general, like it's like a decent wage, but it's not like, you know, high earning. So that's where you have to kind of look up. Yeah. Any other question? Because I do have to go soon, but again, we can do this more often if that's of help.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, cool. So I also recorded the two. I guess the annoying part now is figuring out how to merge. So I'll stop